You were talking to me before about some of the language that's being forced on people, weird things that can't be said. What are some of the examples?
So I believe I saw an article from the London Metropolitan University when they released a language guide about what is and what isn't appropriate to say on campus. I remember one specifically where they said something about you shouldn't refer to someone as your boyfriend or girlfriend. It should be partner, for example, or mother or father should be caregiver. Yeah.
Oh, that's horrible. And wait, who did you say did that?
I believe it was at London Metropolitan University.
So it's the authorities of it's not like some children who have got a wacky idea. It's people who should have a knowledge and understanding of things like the Bolsheviks, the Soviet Union, and the way they tried to take away any kind of emotion from language. Anything nice or funny or interesting had to become grey and miserable. So mother and father, these beautiful words, become caregiver.
And just stripping that language away and just trying to control how we speak to one another. And then I read this very interesting story. I believe it was a student at Exeter University who was having a private phone call in his dormitory with a friend of his. And I'm trying to remember exactly what he said, but I think he said something again, bashed vegans on the phone. I can't remember the exact quote, but he was overheard by someone and they actually reported him to the university for a phone call that he had in his dormitory with a friend.
About vegans.
About vegans, yes.
I mean, I'm a vegan. I don't give a shit. People can make fun of me all day. And they do. Friends of mine make fun of me all the time. Well, who cares?
Exactly. And then also, and this reminds me as well, with universities, is when they're trying to, there's many universities now that have moved to ban meat and dairy on campus and then just have plant-only options, like in catering for students, which I personally think, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, that's your choice. Eat however you want to eat, but it's all about choice. Don't take that away from other students just to push this ideology forward, which is about ideology.
It's a special kind of ideologue that does that. And it ruins it for people like me, because I just want to be a vegan in peace. I want everyone to leave me alone. The worst thing, because I know there's the stereotype of the vegan who doesn't stop talking about the fact that they are that. Yeah. All I want is no one to notice and for me to be in a restaurant and just say, I'll just have the sort of cheesy tomato-y thing. Oh, not cheesy, the fake, what's it called? The nutty cheese or whatever. Like, order that. Without everyone turning and looking at me and going like, you're having what? A bit of a vegan, are you? Are you now one of those ideologues? Like, no, I'm not them. I'm speaking at Vegan Camp Out Festival next week. I'm going to like a vegan thing and I'm going to go on stage and I'm supposed to do a talk about, I think I just want to somehow in a way that they'll actually listen, because if I'm a bit mean, no one's going to listen. They're just going to throw fruit at me. But I want to, fruit's okay. But I want to say something like, listen, I'm on your side and I agree with so many things, but we need to be more tolerant of people who are not. And I wonder if I'm going to get lynched.
Why are you vegan?
I don't know. I think from a young age, I never felt comfortable eating meat, but that was never to say that humans are not supposed to eat meat, because humans have eaten meat for hundreds of thousands of years.
Yes.
But for me, it was, and I think a lot of people are on the spectrum of this, even people who eat a lot of meat. I'm sure a lot of people listening or viewing will feel that feeling of like, oh, I can have lamb, providing I'm not actually looking at the lamb, like a picture of the lamb with its mum. Or, we've all got like and some people don't at all, and that's fair enough as well. But a lot of us have that kind of, oh, this is a bit awkward. I'm eating the thing that I was just like stroking its head a minute ago. So there's that aspect of like, oh, this feels bad. And then there's also a slight disgust aspect, which I think people, you might have. Would you eat a cockroach, for example?
No.
Right. So so prawns are that's basically a cockroach in the ocean, isn't it? Right. But people eat them and they taste amazing, because I remember how good prawns were. But I started to have to like turn my mind off and go, don't think about the disgusting thing that's been alive and is in my mouth now.
Reminds me of when I visited Thailand, and then in Bangkok they have these, I believe it's like dead cockroaches on a stick, and they try and sell them to you on the street.
Because that's the theory. A lot of people who are very anti-vegan, they believe the world is trying to make you eat bugs and insects. And there are types of vegans like me who, that's the worst nightmare. That's even worse than eating meat. I would much rather eat meat than have a disgusting insect in my mouth. Yeah. I used to eat loads of meat. I used to, in Argentina, I lived in Argentina for 6 years, so it was just meat, beef every day. I loved it. But I was just like, okay, no more, I'm done. What are some of the other, I think you were talking about you can't say what was it about immigrant, or you can't talk about immigrants or something?
Yes, I remember seeing an article on this. So one of the universities said you can't say illegal immigrants. I believe it was undocumented migrants. I believe that's what they said. So saying the word illegal immigrant is offensive, apparently.
Did you find yourself
actually true?
Were you clashing at all at university? Because it is unusual to have a very young conservative. They often say, don't they, that someone, I don't remember this expression, but it's someone with no brain is on the left and someone with no heart is on the right.
Yeah.
So from a young age, a lot of people are like, hey, look, I'm a good person, I'm on the left. And then they get a brain and they move further to the center. Are you either particularly brainy or particularly lacking in heart?
Oh, it's a good question. Well, what I can say is when I was younger, probably about 19 or 20, is when I first started getting into politics. So especially during the lockdown, when the world shut down and had a lot more time to do more research. And that was during my A-levels at the time. So it feels like a really long time ago now. And I started learning more about politics on both sides, trying to be open-minded. And at the time, I did align myself with the Conservative Party. And I was too nervous to tell anyone, like any of my friends, because I was scared at the time that if I told them I'm a Conservative, that they wouldn't want to be friends with me anymore. Which I was, at the time, I was, quite nervous about it. I remember the first time I voted as well, I was sort of coerced into voting Lib Dem, and I was too embarrassed to vote for the Conservatives or anything like that because I was young at the time and I just didn't want anyone to not like me. And also at the time, I think I hadn't fully understood exactly what my positions were and where I aligned myself. But then as I got older and started learning more about politics, I was like, at the end of the day, this is what I believe and what I believe is fundamentally right. And all I can do is do what I believe is right and the right thing. So in the end, I ended up getting friends who were supportive of me and my beliefs and just ended up surrounding myself with better people. And then anyone who didn't support me with the work that I was doing or my beliefs, just we ended up drifting apart anyway. So it's okay. I wouldn't say now I support the Conservative Party, especially after the lockdowns. I just thought the handling of that was so despicable. And just after all of that, the mess that the Conservative Party caused this country, I could not get behind them now. And, but I think...
Because they were overly, just because some people not from Britain, they were overly strict with, getting people, and no one could work, the economy's crashed and all of those things.
Well, yeah, with the lockdowns, in and out of lockdown, it affected people's fundamental lives. People couldn't work, couldn't go to school. And then I think what was so despicable as well is the fact that they were scaremongering the public into compliance and yet not following the rules themselves because they knew that they were just making up the rules on the fly to scare the public just to abide by their own rules. And I just thought all of the lies in the seat I just could not get behind. How could you trust a party like that after all of the lockdowns and everything that took place?
I suppose you might argue that Labour, had they been in charge at the time, might have been even more draconian with their rules.
100%. I think so.
Yeah. And around the world, there's nowhere that's gone, God, we had a great lockdown.
I mean, I think both of them would have had, like both Conservatives and Labour, it would have been a total car crash. I do agree that I think if Labour in power, probably would have been even harder lockdowns. And I just think the impact that they had on people's lives are just horrific. And especially, after the Conservatives' handling of it, could not get behind them. I actually thought when it came to the election that Labour needed to win the election. I think the Conservatives needed to go back into the opposition and actually reevaluate who they are as a party.
Did you vote Labour?
No, I did not. I actually spoiled my ballot. Okay. I couldn't support any of the parties.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I can see you as a sort of future politician. You've got the sort of vibe. Would you do that?
I think I wouldn't be well behaved enough. I'm quite outspoken with my opinions.
You have to go to America then. That's what Liz Truss and everyone, Boris, Liz Truss, they're all off
maybe.
If you're an outspoken, because politicians here are a bit grey and boring, and when you go to America and you start like letting what you really think out.
It all comes out then.
Even Rishi Sunak, only in the last couple of weeks when it was becoming apparent he was no longer going to be Prime Minister, did he start to sort of show a bit of oomph, a bit of personality. I think that's something Britain's perhaps missing, although I suppose Boris had a bit too much of it, you could say.
He had personality at the beginning, but then I think he just sort of caved to the mob. And then, coming in and out of lockdown, I remember just before, I think it was a couple of weeks before the lockdown was announced, he was the one talking about herd immunity. And then only a couple of weeks later, the country's in a national lockdown. You must stay at home. You get 1 walk a day. All of this, it just complete. If 1984, just complete control. So yeah. I think there needs to, with politicians as well, I would love to see more people who actually have more personality and actually say what they believe and do what they say they will do. I think with many of the politicians that what I have a problem with is they sort of toe to the party line. It almost feels quite robotic in the way that they act. I want to see more people with personality. Even if I don't necessarily agree with you, at least stick by your convictions and just have a little bit more about you than just being a robot.